My name is Ava Sinclair. I'm 28, and this past weekend felt like a surreal dream I couldn't wake up from. My boyfriend of 2 years, Colin Matthews, 30, packed his things and moved out on Friday after what could only be described as the most explosive fight we'd ever had. And for once, I didn't beg him to stay. I didn't even flinch. Let me start from the beginning. Colin and I met at a mutual friend's housewarming party. He was charming, effortlessly funny, and had this way of making you feel like he'd known you forever. We hit it off immediately. By the 6-month mark, we were inseparable. When my lease was up, I suggested we move in together. Colin's 2-bedroom apartment was perfect for both our lifestyles. The second bedroom doubled as his home office, bathed in sunlight and quiet enough for video calls, while I juggled my demanding retail management schedule at the boutique downtown. At first, living together was idyllic, but slowly, cracks began to appear. Colin works from home as a freelance graphic designer. Long hours in pajamas, clients on calls, laptops sprawled across every flat surface. I understood his work, respected it even, but boundaries blurred. I'd come home exhausted, just hoping for a few minutes of quiet, only to find his office invaded, yoga mats laid out, client calls interrupted, or scattered notebooks occupying our shared spaces. And then came the snide remarks. "You've been home all day," he'd say, eyes flicking to his screen. "Must be nice doing whatever it is you do." Never mind that I'd pulled 12-hour shifts, negotiated demanding schedules, and dealt with entitled customers who thought my boutique was their personal playground. Colin didn't see that. He saw a housewife in pajamas and a man-child paying rent. The financial imbalance was another sore spot. I contributed $500 a month toward the $2,200 rent. The rest fell to Colin, who also covered utilities, groceries, and entertainment. By all accounts, he carried more weight, but somehow he always framed me as the one not pulling my weight. Thursday was the breaking point. I had just closed a major sale at the boutique, 3 designer bags in one afternoon, a personal record. Excited, I rushed home to share it with Colin. "That's nice, Ava," he said, eyes glued to his screen. "Can you move your stuff off the dining table? I want Marissa and Jen over for wine night." My hands froze. The contract I was reviewing, stacks of boutique orders, even the celebratory notes. I had to push them aside for a social gathering? "Colin," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "this is a really big deal. Can you at least pretend to care?" He looked up, eyes narrowing. That expression, like I was throwing a tantrum over nothing, made my stomach twist. "Oh, Ava," he said, voice dripping condescension, "why do you always need validation for doing your job? I spent the day selling 3 designer bags. Do you see me begging for a parade?" I lost it. Not yelling, just done. "You're right, Colin. My job is nothing compared to yours, sitting here judging me, while I actually do the work that earns money. Must be exhausting, putting up with me." And then came the full eye roll, laced with venom. "You think you're the victim here? Please. I'm the one putting up with you." I stood, meeting his gaze. "You'll miss putting up with me," he laughed, a real dismissive laugh. "Miss your weird work hours? Your obsession with schedules? The fact you treat me like some hired help? Face it, Ava, I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. Without me, you'd be nothing special." Something inside me snapped. "Then why stay?" I asked, voice quiet but firm. "Because unlike you, I don't give up when things get tough," he said, smug. Maybe it was time for both of us to see reality. "Maybe I should," I said. "Maybe I'll stay with Marissa for a while. Let you see what life is like without me." His face twisted in disbelief. "Excuse me? If you're moving out, I need your key." "You just said you were leaving. I'm agreeing with you," I replied, holding out my hand. "We're done, Colin. Get your stuff and go." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The shock, genuine shock, was almost satisfying. For once, the power wasn't in his hands. Thursday night, I packed my things carefully, made a show of leaving, and drove to Marissa's apartment. Friday morning, a flurry of texts. "I need to grab some things today. Make sure you're not there. This is hard enough without your drama." I didn't respond immediately. I had meetings all afternoon. When I finally texted back, I was calm. "You can come by after 6 o'clock. This is the only time I'm available this week." Predictably, he showed up at 2 o'clock anyway, with Marissa and some guy with a truck. He tried his old intimidation tactics, but I had changed the locks that morning. Seeing him knock, flustered and powerless, I felt a flicker of relief. For the first time in months, I had control over my life. Later, while I sipped coffee at my favorite cafe, Nora, the 26-year-old barista I'd known casually for a year, noticed my tense expression. We chatted about books, life, nothing heavy, until, out of the blue, she mentioned Colin's ex-girlfriend. Haley Morrison? She asked. Her voice hinted at disbelief. She used to be my manager at Luxe Boutique. Terrible boss, manipulative, never paid anyone fairly. I felt my stomach drop. Everything about my last week, the stress, the confrontation, the feeling that something was off, suddenly clicked. Haley wasn't struggling financially. She had been playing everyone around her, even Colin. Nora leaned closer. Be careful. She has a way of making herself look like the victim, and she's good at it. My mind spun. The seeds of a plan began forming. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing. This story wasn't over. Friday morning felt unusually calm, considering the storm that had blown through my apartment just a day before. But calm was deceptive. As I sipped my coffee at the cafe, the text from Colin kept buzzing relentlessly. This is really immature. You're holding my things hostage. You'll regret this. I ignored them. I'd learned long ago that reacting emotionally only gave people power over you. And Colin, and maybe Haley, thrived on control. By mid-morning, my phone rang. It was Nora. Ava, weird question. Your ex isn't blonde with a Michael Kors bag, is she? I blinked. Excuse me? Haley, she said, lowering her voice. She's outside your building. Been there for hours. Watching. Not subtle at all. I glanced out the window. Sure enough, parked across the street, a white Honda glinted in the sun. Haley, arms crossed, eyes sharp, looking like she was plotting the next move in some twisted game. Of course, I thought. She wouldn't let this go quietly. I had no intention of confronting her directly. Not yet. Instead, I focused on my work, client calls, inventory updates, boutique strategies, all of it. She could watch all she wanted. I was untouchable because my life didn't revolve around her validation. Earlier that morning, Nora had told me more about Haley. Apparently, when she worked at Luxe Boutique, Haley had a reputation for belittling employees, manipulating schedules, and claiming credit for others' work. She'd even tried to accuse Nora of theft when she quit. Thankfully, security cameras and common sense prevented disaster. It all started to make sense. Haley's facade of financial struggle, her manipulative behavior with Colin, her entitlement, it wasn't just annoying, it was a calculated pattern. And now she was testing me. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. I ignored it, but the pounding persisted. I peeked through the peephole. Haley, Marissa, and some other friends, carrying boxes, acting as though they were entitled to my apartment. Colin, Haley shouted, open the door. I smirked. Colin isn't here. I'm Ava. I opened the door just enough to speak, keeping my posture firm. Everything you own is in boxes in the living room. Take them and go. She shoved slightly, insisting she needed to check the apartment. I don't trust you, she said. I held up my phone, showing photographs of each box, neatly documented. Everything is here, all accounted for. Marissa, her friend, looked uneasy. Wow, Sorry, Ava. You're even more intimidating than she said. I ignored the jab. Calm and meticulous, I guided them through collecting Haley's things. She tried to throw in a demand for reimbursement for utilities she'd been covering, but I laughed silently to myself. Utilities? She paid $500 toward $2,200 rent, less than a quarter of the bills. This is rich. By the time they left, Haley's meltdown had been spectacular. Texts, threats of lawsuits, dramatic complaints to anyone who would listen. And yet through it all, I felt a strange serenity. No interruptions, no arguing, no compromising my boundaries. Saturday morning, she tried a different approach. Sweet texts, soft apologies, hints at reconciliation. I didn't respond. By afternoon, she was back to threats, claiming her expensive designer items were at risk. I had anticipated this. Every item, every bag, every piece of clothing, even a half-used bottle of shampoo, was carefully boxed, labeled, and stacked in the living room. My one message to her was clear. Your belongings are packed and ready. Pick them up tomorrow between 10 o'clock a.m. and noon. Bring help and a vehicle. This is the only time I'm available this week. The response was predictable chaos. 32 texts in a row, alternating between insults, pleas, and ultimatums. But while she raged, I was having one of the most peaceful Saturdays in months. I worked uninterrupted, ordered Thai food without complaint, and watched a documentary she would have called boring. I felt free. And then came a revelation that shifted everything. Nora approached me while I grabbed a coffee before Haley's scheduled pickup. Ava, something you should know. Haley? She used to manage me at Lux Boutique. She wasn't struggling financially. She was hiding her investments. She liked to manipulate people into covering her bills while she saved and invested money. Be careful. I paused, letting it sink in. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces fit together. The entitlement, the manipulation, the drama. This was Haley's pattern. Not just a personal vendetta, but a lifestyle. My mind whirred. I could feel the beginnings of a plan forming, something that would allow me to reclaim my life without stooping to her level of petty cruelty. By 10:15 a.m., Haley arrived, dragging Marissa and a couple of others with her. I opened the door, standing firm in the doorway. Boxes are here. Take them and leave. She tried her usual intimidation, pushing past me. I held my ground. Everything is in the boxes. I documented it all. Photos, inventory, nothing is missing. Haley's face twisted. Fine, but you owe me for utilities. I laughed, incredulous. Utilities? You paid $500 per month total. Rent is $2,200. Utilities average $300. You're not owed a thing. Show me receipts. She couldn't, of course not. The group left, muttering complaints, clearly uncomfortable. Haley made one last desperate attempt. You'll never find anyone else like me. You'll be alone in that apartment forever. I held her gaze. Promise. She stomped off, and for a moment, the street felt impossibly still, like the air had been cleared of all tension. And in that stillness, I realized something. This wasn't just survival. This was liberation. By Sunday morning, the apartment was quiet, eerily quiet, but the peace was deceiving. I knew Haley's tantrum wasn't over. Her entitlement had no expiration date, and she clearly thrived on chaos. Her next move came as a flurry of texts and calls, alternating between sweet attempts at reconciliation and veiled threats. Ava, let's talk like adults. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe we can work this out. Then, minutes later, if anything happens to my things, you'll regret it. Designer bags, thousands of dollars, I can sue you. I ignored them all. I had everything meticulously packed and photographed. Every shoe, every bag, every jacket, even the half-used shampoo bottles was accounted for. It wasn't just organization, it was armor. By mid-morning, I headed out to the cafe to calm my nerves. That's when Nora appeared, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter with that signature mischievous grin. Hey, she said casually, I think you should know. Haley's past behavior isn't unique. She's done this before. Manipulated exes, framed coworkers, exaggerated financial struggles. She's good at making herself the victim. I felt a shiver run down my spine. That explained the texts, the dramatic door slamming, and the sudden escalation. Haley wasn't just angry. She was playing a well-rehearsed role. What do you mean? I asked cautiously. Nora leaned closer, whispering. She made me out to be irresponsible at Lux Boutique. She tried to claim I was stealing merchandise when I quit. Security cameras saved me, but she's the same in every relationship. Clever, manipulative, and entitled. A plan began forming in my mind, one that would allow me to reclaim my life without stooping to her level. I would not be bullied. I would not be guilted. I would not allow her to manipulate my boundaries. By late morning, Haley showed up at the apartment again. She brought Marissa, Marissa's boyfriend, and 2 other friends. They marched in like they owned the place, boxes in hand. I opened the door, standing firmly in the frame. Everything is packed. Take your things and leave, I said calmly. Haley tried her intimidation tactics, pushing, pleading, and attempting guilt, but I held my ground. Everything is documented. Photos, inventory, nothing is missing. One of her friends whispered uneasily, realizing this wasn't going to be simple. Haley tried her last card. You'll never find anyone else like me. You'll be alone forever. I smirked. Promise. They left, muttering complaints, leaving a trail of frustration in their wake. For the first time in months, I felt calm, empowered, in control. Later, while sipping coffee, I began thinking about the bigger picture. Haley's manipulations weren't just personal. They were systemic. She preyed on people who cared, relied on others to subsidize her lifestyle, and thrived on making herself the victim. She had been playing this role with Colin before me, and likely with others before that. Nora chimed in again. her tone half joking, half serious. You know, she can't bully everyone forever. Maybe it's time for a little poetic justice. That thought lingered. A plan began forming in my mind, one that wasn't about revenge in a petty sense, but about reclaiming my life, my space, and my peace without stooping to her level. By the afternoon, I was already thinking of solutions. I needed a fresh start, a clean slate, a way to remove Haley's shadow from my life permanently. And as I sat there, the pieces slowly fell into place. A new apartment, a supportive roommate, a life that wasn't dictated by someone else's drama. The first step? Secure my boundaries. The second? Establish a living situation that insulated me from manipulative people. The third? Well, that part was still forming. But one thing was clear. Haley would no longer have power over me. By Saturday morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't moving back into my old apartment, not because of Haley, but because I realized I didn't want to. That space was heavy with memories, arguments, and the constant tension of feeling like I wasn't enough. I needed a fresh start. I called Nora. Hey, random question. Are you still looking for a roommate? There was a pause, then, with a laugh. Yeah, actually, my roommate's moving out. It's just me now. Why? I explained briefly, casually, hiding the full chaos of the past week. I'm looking to downsize. Your apartment could work perfectly. By that afternoon, I was walking through Nora's place. It was everything I hadn't realized I needed. Bright sunlight, charming wooden floors, a second bedroom perfect for an office, and a location just around the corner from the cafe. Affordable, convenient, peaceful. This is perfect, I said, excitement bubbling up despite the lingering tension from the past week. Nora grinned. Glad you like it. And don't worry, this time, no drama. You pay your share, I pay mine. We respect each other's space. It's simple. I signed the lease that afternoon. The relief was instant. Finally, a space that felt like my own, not haunted by past arguments, not subject to manipulation. Later that day, I returned to the old apartment to oversee the final load of Haley's belongings. As I stepped out, there she was. Haley, holding a Starbucks cup, eyes wide with shock. You're moving? She stammered. I raised an eyebrow. Yep, but not for you. Just a fresh start. She pushed past me into the apartment, spinning around, eyes darting like she was in a movie. This doesn't make sense. You love this place. You said it was perfect for your work. Why didn't you tell me? Because why would I said, voice calm but firm. Tears started forming. Ava, I made a mistake. Maybe we could talk. Maybe try again? I shook my head. We were together for 2 years. That counts for nothing now. I'm moving forward. She tried one last desperate tactic. Who is she? Your new roommate? I turned toward Nora, who appeared with a box of donated kitchen supplies, smiling warmly. Haley's mouth fell open. Recognition, disbelief, rage, all in one look. Yes, I said casually. Meet Nora. Barista, part-time nursing student, considerate, clean, pays her share, and actually a good friend. Win-win. Haley's face crumpled, and suddenly all her threats, manipulations, and power plays felt impotent. She had no leverage anymore. I locked the door behind us, walking toward the lobby with Nora. Haley followed, alternating between pleading, insults, and disbelief. The doorman watched with amusement, clearly enjoying the show. Good luck with everything, Haley, I said lightly as we stepped out into the sunlight. Hope you find what you're looking for. As Nora and I walked away toward the new apartment, I realized something profound. Leaving my old apartment, leaving Colin and Haley behind, was the best decision I could have made. Freedom wasn't just about leaving. They had given me the opportunity to rebuild, to reclaim, to live on my terms. The first morning in my new apartment felt surreal. Sunlight poured through the windows, hitting the hardwood floors in golden patches. For the first time in months, I breathed freely without the lingering tension of Colin, Haley, or the old apartment's memories pressing down on me. Nora was already there, unpacking her books in the living room. Morning, roomie, she said, flashing that easy smile. Coffee? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Absolutely, you read my mind. Settling into our routine was effortless. Shared chores, mutual respect, and genuine conversation replaced the drama and manipulation I had endured for far too long. She became more than just a roommate. She was an anchor, a reminder that normal, healthy relationships existed outside of toxic cycles. Meanwhile, news about Haley trickled in through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, she had to move back in with her parents after failing to secure an apartment she could afford. Her claims of emotional abuse fell flat when our old doorman and neighbors confirmed the truth. She had no leverage, no allies, and no ability to manipulate the narrative in her favor. A small part of me smiled. Poetic justice wasn't about revenge. It was about living well while the consequences naturally unfolded for those who tried to control others. Haley's entitlement and manipulation had caught up with her, and I didn't have to lift a finger. By midweek, I was fully settled. My office corner was perfect, my kitchen organized, and my personal space completely my own. The freedom allowed me to focus on my work, my friendships, and myself without distraction. Even the small moments, a quiet cup of coffee, uninterrupted reading, a spontaneous walk, felt like victory. One evening, Nora and I sat on the balcony, sharing stories about our past, laughing about the absurdity of life, and planning for the future. She nudged me playfully. You know, moving here was probably the best decision you've ever made. I smiled, letting the words settle. It wasn't just moving, it was reclaiming my life. I learned who I am, what I deserve, and how to protect myself from people who thrive on chaos. Looking out over the neighborhood, I felt a profound sense of peace. The shadows of manipulation and drama were behind me. Life ahead was clean, bright, and entirely mine. And as for Haley, well, she would eventually realize that some people's lives aren't hers to control, no matter how hard she tried. Karma, I reflected, wasn't about revenge. It was about living well, unapologetically, and refusing to accept less than you deserved. And that, finally, was exactly what I intended to do.